welcome back. I'm here to talk about basically the honest lie. And you probably thinking to yourself, if you clicked on this video, what in God's green hell is the honest lie? Well, that could be several things. Have you ever been told something and you believed it with all of your soul, and you found out later that, damn, you know, that ain't really happened? Um, I was gonna save this for Christmas, but I'll say it now. Um, I think about one time in probably maybe early mid 70s. Um, I obviously believed in Santa Claus, and you had the Rankin Bass stuff that came on, like Rudolph, Santa Claus is coming to town, all these shows. And for the longest time, you know, we had the Christmas tree, the traditional tree, where it was an actual evergreen tree that had the white lights on it, had all of these ornaments on it, and so forth. And I was like, we actually put out the milk, we actually put out the cookies. I remember my brother was there. Obviously, he didn't tell us because he was a lot older than we were that it wasn't a Santa Claus. And, even my sister, there's the thunder, if you can hear it in the background and so forth. Um, so, anyhow, this was funny. So, one Christmas, I remember we used to get a lot of blizzards in DC. We was in a one bedroom apartment on 18th Place, Northeast, close to RFK Stadium where the Redskins played and all of that. And here's the funny thing. We put out like milk and cookies like around 10 o'clock. It's like they let us, and I want to say Christmas fell on a weekend that time. So we was up late. I remember we was up late putting out the milk and cookies, and the presents would be there maybe around midnight, between midnight and 1 a.m. whatever. So I remember my dad and my mother was talking about this. And here's the funny thing. I was so excited that I think I only slept like an hour and a half. So I probably didn't even get my REM sleep as a kid or whatever, because I was so excited, not just for the toys, but to actually see Santa Claus. I'm like, man, Santa's. We don't have a chimney, but I'm sure he's gonna come through the front door or whatever. So sure enough, around maybe 12:30, 1 quarter to 1 or whatever, Santa came. All right, it was this big black MF named Carl. My dad. Everybody knew him as Butch. He he went into wherever the toys or the presents and all of that was already hidden at, and I seen the Jolly Black Giant put all of those toys underneath that Christmas tree. And I remember, and then he started drinking the milk and eating the chocolate chip cookies. And I'm trying not to laugh at this because I'm gonna tell you, you know how you get so mad that you're hurt. I mean, it's like a real angry mad, like, damn it, I can't believe I was tricked into this or whatever. So my dad, I'm saying this big black ass sit there eating those cookies and drinking that milk. I can't tell you. It was like every cookie he ate, I got angry and angry and laying in that bed like, God damn it, I can't believe I got tricked like this. And my sister saw it too. And, my sister was a few years older than I was, and they kept the wool over her eyes too because she sure as hell thought it was a Santa Claus too. And I remember, she she actually had tears in her eyes. I was just mad. I was like, F this, F that in my mind or whatever, even as a kid or whatever. And I just saw him eat those cookies, drink that milk, and, he put all those presents under the tree. I was like, I was done with Christmas, man. I'm like, screw a Christmas, because I just felt like all of that magical, whimsical stuff about Christmas just went straight to hell when I saw my dad putting all of that stuff under the tree and sitting there eating that damn. It's like every cookie. I was like, he ate another one. I was like, and he ate another one. I was like, God damn it. And it was like I just got more and more upset when I thought about that. And I was upset that I fell for it. And even before that, it was like, the tooth fairy thing when I lost my teeth as a kid. You go from your baby teeth to your adult teeth and so forth. And, I slept all the way through that, but, it was 10 cent when 10 cent was actually worth something. You can buy a little bit of candy with that back then, but good luck with 10 cent now. It's to the point where unless you got like a whole roll of them, you ain't buying jack. So basically, that's what I went through, and that's what I mean by the honest lie. When you believe in something that you're totally ignorant of, that's not true. That's what religion does to people. That's what politics does to people. That's what relationships do to people. That's what some of your jobs are doing to you. You believe in something so much that you don't even research whether or not what they're telling you is true or accurate. And then you reply and you live under that doctrine that everything is true that's being told. I mean, it's like people in North Korea, people in Cuba, where some places, well, Cubans are warming up to everything because, a lot of them trying to get out of there. But North Koreans, for the most part, it's like you live in this regime where you've been fed this information over and over and over again. And, you repeat it because that's all you hear. You don't have a counter to it. And you don't understand what the other side is, or is there another side to such and such, whatever information is being spoon fed to you. So me growing up in the hood, I believed everybody was angry. I believe people just worked their 9 to 5s, or either you was gonna work 9 to 5 or you was gonna be a hustler out on the street or whatever, or you're gonna get on welfare and stuff like that when people was basically picked on for being on welfare. Now it's like everybody will say it outright. Yeah, I get such and such per month from the government and so forth. Back then, it was almost like, boy, that's a damn shame that you got food stamps. And the difference was you had the food stamps. You had the actual denomination of food stamps. And everybody knew what the food stamps were because they were a whole totally different color than your money. Because your money was just basically that, green, almost black green and white, off white. The food stamps, every denomination had a different color, whether it was yellow, pink, blue, whatever. And when you went to the store, in DC, we had A&P, Safeway, Shoppers Food Warehouse at that time. When somebody, IGA, when people went to the store and they paid out of those food stamps, they were literal denomination that they would pay out of. And basically, it was like everybody knew that you was on it. When they first came out with that independence card, where unfortunately, I believe it was a white, credit card that had independence on it. Now, I think they're giving it out nowadays where it looks just like a regular debit card. So you have no idea who's on food stamps, SNAP, whatever they call it nowadays. So, and they did that to change the look of how somebody is on welfare, because they probably don't even use the term welfare anymore. So basically, you had this wool over your eyes that everybody was on it because you never heard of anybody else doing well. And when you grow up in a neighborhood like that, and everything is like you're literally fighting every day, you know, you're fighting not to be picked on, you're fighting not to be bullied, you're fighting because you just want to be left alone in some cases. In other cases, you're trying to fit in. And there's this weird dynamic growing up in the hood where it's like, oh, if you started talking like you had some sense, oh, you sound like a white boy. Or, oh, you're talking proper. You're talking like them people on TV and so forth. And it's like, it was frowned upon to be smart, but it was also frowned upon to be stupid and ignorant too. So it was like you in a situation where you can't win unless you beat people up, or people thought you was crazy enough that you would go off and they will leave you alone. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes the funnier you are and the more athletic you are, the less likely they will actually mess with you. So it's this facade of failure that you run into, which is why a lot of people get, especially in impoverished areas, like, you know, basically the urban jungle, basically in rural areas where information doesn't go there as quickly, you know, and some rural suburban areas where you're isolated from a lot of the stuff. You have this total facade of ignorance that something else is not around you, and then you have this false sense of, hey, people everywhere goes through this. So then you tend to rely more on the news, you rely on the newspaper, whatever. And nowadays, with the internet, you're so intertwined with everything that's going on in the world, but you're only getting it from a few sources. And you tend to believe those sources because they jive with your well being, the way that you're raised, or your particular value system. So you tend to judge people too much off of your value system. Just like the other two videos that we just posted up there with the old versus the new generation and religion versus Jesus. I'm going to take the new generation, old generation, well, old generation versus new generation into account now. Everything that happened in the old generation wasn't good, which is why the new generation, for the most part, has a whole different value system and how they look at things more with a feeling versus actual. You know, you have a lot of people that feels like they're ostracized from society, that they're already put into a negative spot. You run into this diversity, equity, and inclusion where it's like, all these groups, whether you're qualified or not, need to be here to represent somebody else, even if they're not qualified for that job. Whereas back then, there was a certain earning, and, with affirmative action, for example, you had people that went through the program. I would say 75% of them wasn't even nowhere near qualified for that job, and in some cases it worked out because they picked up what they needed to do and they did it. Okay. Just like with college. It's like some people got in, after a while. We're human beings. We're learning beings. We figure it out and then we work with it. That's why a lot of people that go to college tend to be a totally different person after they leave college, because you're taught so many things that you never heard of, that all of a sudden it's like you opening up these encyclopedias, or you're going on Google, then all of a sudden you're on the dark web, and then it's like you're seeing all this information that you never saw before, and you're mesmerized by it. And I think that's where the honest lie plays into. Because in certain situations, you have been lied to so much that you automatically have a scapegoat for what's happening. And you tend to think your way is right because it's working for you. But then when somebody else tries to do what you do, it doesn't work because it makes no sense. It's like, well, how are you getting these opportunities and I'm not? And how is your belief system so different than mine? And it seems like it's working for you, but it's not working for me. A lot of that is because it's not really working for that person either. They just are used to the falls and the pitfalls that happens because they have that thought process that's that way. So somebody that was raised in a church or whatever, their lives could be going well and doing well or whatever. And you can insert religion here. They're good people that may have the wrong belief. And they tend, not all of them, I don't want to put everybody in the same box, but sometimes with those pastors that's telling them information, they always tend to judge somebody else's situation off of their own value system and their own beliefs. And a lot of times they get it wrong because they focus too hard on what they would do in somebody else's situation. So when you step into somebody else's situation, you have to take all their experience that they had to deal with. You have to delete everything out of your mind, delete everything out of your, processes and experiences, and you have to literally be them. Just like Adam and Eve. They knew of nothing. If you want to go, with a biblical doctrine and so forth, they knew nothing about what was outside of the Garden of Eden until the snake came in, which was Satan, and convinced Eve that that tree of life that's right there in the center or wherever it was in the garden, you eat from that, you'll know everything. They didn't even know they were naked. Okay? It was just like, this is the way it's supposed to be. Because they had no idea what was outside of that Garden of Eden, nor did they have an interest of what was outside of it until somebody else introduced them to that interest and so forth. So, to be hypercritical of somebody, you have to understand the honest lie. That person may only know what they know. They don't know what you know. And for them to know what you know, you have to be able to walk in somebody else's shoes to have a good understanding of what happens. And I think people tend to believe in something so strong that they forget, I don't know what the hell this is because I never had to deal with it. So you always go under the assumption that somebody else knows what you know or knows what right from wrong is. Everybody has a basic feeling and basic doctrine of what's right or wrong. If you beat up somebody, you're not supposed to beat up somebody. Everybody knows that, but they do it anyway. And, 80% of the population would never hurt a fly, much less hurt another being. But then, that 20% tends to roll off on the rest of the population or whatever. You're not supposed to kill somebody. It's wrong if this person is in a relationship and you decide to have a relationship with that person or whatever. And the other person on the other side doesn't even know that you're doing their partner or whatever. So it's stuff like that. And your value system, when it comes to sex and stuff like that, may be different than somebody else's, whether they're religious or spiritual or not. So, again, they may not have been taught in a certain way, but there's an internal causeway that lets you know that you're doing right and you're doing wrong. And a lot of people ignore it better than others. There are some people, their conscience will not allow them to do certain things a certain way. And to judge somebody, you have to know what you're judging. So I'm not saying this just for, to sound good or whatever. But when you start applying whatever you believe in to somebody else, you have to understand they may not have experienced what you experienced. And you may be wrong because you did not experience the right qualities either, but you believe in what you believe in so much that you start spreading that stuff to everybody else, thinking that you're 1000% right and unchecked and so forth. And then you have a bitter pill to swallow when you can't hold your family together, you can't hold a job, you can't do certain things because you believe more in what you believe than other people because you think you're right. You have not been checked with that, you know, going over your lifespan. So when you deal in faith, you have to have an honest faith, but you have to also have factual faith too. Because a lot of people may not experience what you experience. And you may have been taught wrong, and you're applying your wrong attributes to everybody else when they should be focused on how to do things right. Where is the determination for it? Where is the source? How has the source been tested? Just like what they said, I'm not even going to get into all of the vaccine information and stuff like that. I let RFK and the doctors, people like RFK Jr. and the doctors take care of that. And, let them hash that out. But if your source is bad, your results are going to be bad. So if you start thinking just a little bit outside of the box about where you stand with certain things and the results of where you stand with certain things, you start to see that maybe you're not as right as you thought you were. You may also believe and pass judgment on people that you shouldn't be passing judgment on, and that goes for everybody, myself included. I may prejudge somebody, I may do something wrong, I may say something wrong, but it's based off of an honest lie. So that's all I have for everybody. Until next time.